So hello everyone. I am Kyle Perkino and on YouTube, and I welcome you back to the A Podcast in the East, podcast. This podcast is on my YouTube channel, which, much like the channel as a whole, is also all about the land of Rune and the people known as the Easterlings, both from Lord of the Rings. And we got a checklist of things to talk about in this episode too, and it's only the second episode ever made. These are why I gave my The Onyx Emperor a scorpion left arm and a scorpion right leg, how I paint my Easterling miniatures from Games Workshop, who volunteered to voice act as Amdur in my Age of the Ring submod, and other mods for Battle for Middle-earth that serve the same purpose, who I learned the accent I do in my voice acting from, and why I chose Arabic accent for my Easterling voices. Oh, and also the off-topic little tidbit is why I disliked the Flash movie. So let's get into those topics in the order I mentioned them, eh? Okay, here we go. First off, why did I give my model character in my Age of the Ring submod? The hero character I added, title known as the Onyx Emperor, has a scorpion left arm and a scorpion right leg. Why did I do that? Why did I give him that? Well, I actually have a story behind that, and I wrote it down in the Discord server for Age of the Ring community, and don't feel like scrolling up the modding showcase feed to try to refresh my own memory right now. So I'm going to do it from the top of my head. And plus, I'm confident that I remember pretty darn well what exactly was going on in my head when I did that. So here it goes. I gave the Onyx Emperor a scorpion left arm and scorpion right leg because I wanted to convey a story of I wanted to do a bit of world building for the Easterling culture. The idea here is really just a concept art. The concept being that if an Easterling wins or survives a battle but loses a limb, then that limb is replaced with a deadly weapon version of that limb, like a right calf and a left forearm in the case of Onyx Emperor. And the backstory I came up with for him was that he may not have lost his life in Boromir and Faramir retaking of Osgiliath that started the War of the Ring, but the Onyx Emperor did lose his left forearm and hand and his right shin and foot in a one-to-one duel against Boromir. So, that's because Boromir was using a sword and shield, and Onyx Emperor was using that giant glaive that you can actually go see him with if you check out my community post feed, or if you just hit me up on the Age of the Ring server, and I don't know, I guess I'll send you a picture of it one-to-one. Although I will have to credit Matthias, what are their usernames? Oh yeah, Matthias and Wambly for respectively the human parts and the scorpion parts of this Onyx Emperor kit bash of mine, as it's known. Yeah. So there's that. Anyway, back to the backstory behind this aesthetic. So the Onyx Emperor had a new left forearm and hand forged out of onyx, and a new right shin and foot also forged out of onyx, but modeled on the great scorpions he had encountered and admired earlier in life on one of his trips to the southern borders of Khand, the borders that Khand has with Nirharad. Yeah, those borders. Yeah, and he knew full well that doing this would make him a lot deadlier than he was even before that fight against Boromir that cost him his left forearm and right shin that he was born with. All right, you got the backstory of the Onyx Emperor Scorpion, left arm Scorpion, left forearm and right shin. All right, next in the, all right, I'm gonna do a checklist because it's literally a handwritten checklist and I'm gonna be filling the boxes completely. La 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 la. All right, done. Next, how do I paint my Easterling miniatures from Games Workshop? This will be an interesting part for all of those of you who are into the Middle Earth strategy battle game that Games Workshop makes. They're basically It basically goes like this. With the armor, I paint the. Oh wait, no, I have to do undercoat first. But yeah, the undercoat first. I go with Abaddon Black for the entire miniature. Abaddon Black. It's a base color. All of the Games Workshop paints have like these Warhammer Fantasy setting names, Warhammer Fantasy World names, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. It's basically the kind of names they have these days. Like as of 11 years ago, believe it or not. Yeah, and so about in black base coat, and then after that comes the. After that, I go to painting the armor, which basically includes a helmet, shield, and the body armor, lamellar armor. And I paint all this by starting with a base coat of Retributor armor, which is like the brightest gold of all the base paints Games Workshop has. And then I base coat it with not base coat, and then I do what's called a wash, which is where you take a transparent ink like paint and like gently coat the base coated area with it just to get a little bit of dark into the cracks and crevices. But yeah, a wash of Reichland Flesh Shade, which is their ink-like paint of the flesh tone color, and they also use it for anything resembling gold or brass or bronze, or at least they encourage people to via the Citadel Color app, which I do have on my phone, by the way. Yeah, and then I follow that up with by painting the surfaces that are just faces of the scales of each and every scale and of the helmets and the shields with auric armor gold, one of the which is the brighter of the two gold colored layer paints, which by the way are thinner in their consistency than the base paints are. Their viscosity, which by the way is how thin or thick any liquid is. But yeah, the layer paints have thinner viscosity than the base paints. And then the thinnest of them all, I think, would be how you describe the shade paints. Anyhow, auric armor gold layer, and then for the edge highlights, the edges of the scales and the helmets and the shields, I do Runefang steel for the edge highlights. See, it's like a two-step process with the highlighting I have, where step one is face and step two is edge. Yeah. And then for the clothing, I basically have three colors: red, purple, black, and I pick two for every miniature. Hold on a second. I will be right back. I'm back. Um, yeah, there's the what I do is the for the red clothes. Let's just start there. I do a corn red base coat. Corn spell a weird Warhammer way of spelling it. Khorne. Corn red. And then what I do after that is I do a wash of Agrax Earthshade, which is like a brown colored shade paint, and then the last step with red is to edge highlight with Wazdaka red. That's also another Warhammer Fantasy term, Wazdaka. But yes, the purple clothing I do with a base coat of Nagaroth Night, and then I follow that up with Zarius Purple for thicker highlights, and then thinner highlights I do in Gene Stealer Purple, and fewer of the Gene Stealer than of the Zarius, too, with the purples. And finally, I create a. Oh, yeah. And finally, I create a wash of Druchii Violet, which is the purple colored shade paint. Finally, for black, I do I leave the Abaddon black as is, but then I do highlight all the edges with Eshin Gray, the layer paint is called, and then I highlight some of them again more thinly with Dawnstone, and then I apply a double wash, which is basically two washes one at a time of the black colored shade paint that Games Workshop has, which is Nuln Oil. For those stainless steel weapons of theirs, the Easterlings, I mean, I do Lead Belcher base, Nuln Oil wash, and finally Runefang steel layer. And when I want to paint the wood, I just go Rhinox hide base coat, followed by followed by oh yeah, followed by a what was it? Doom Bowl Brown in my case, highlights, and then Agrax Earthshade wash. Yes. And that includes the wooden platings on the shields, you know? Yeah, for stuff that I want to present as being gray, like say the boots, the sash, and the oh yeah, and the quiver on every archer. I do Mechanicus standard gray base coat. Then what I do is I layer it with Dawnstone and Administratum gray. But before I do those two layer paints, I do a Nuln Oil wash, and then I highlight the faces with Dawnstone and the edges with Administratum gray. Yeah, that's what I do to make the sashes, boots, and quivers gray in color. And anything else? Oh yeah, and then the base I just undercoat the entire base with Steel Legion drab. And then once that dries, I base coat the top with what was it, Mornfang brown? Yeah, Mornfang brown. And then once that dries, I do two dry brushes, which you can actually watch the dry brushing technique by just looking up Games Workshop dry brush technique or something right here on YouTube, and I guarantee you it'll be on the official Games Workshop YouTube channel somewhere. But yeah, I basically dry brush. The colors I choose are I think the brown dry is Vermin Lord Hide or something for the first layer, and then for the second, once that dries, the second dry paint that I use, or dry compound as Games Workshop calls it, is I think they call it Terminatus Stone for like the top of the base, and then I allow the rim and the bottom to stay just plain Steel Legion drab. And there you go. Oh wait, no, that's not everything. What about the feathers of the arrows for the archers? Ah yes. Those I started off with a base coat of what was it? Karak no, it was Rakarth flesh. And then an Agrax Earth Shade, and then I do a Pallid Witch flesh highlight of the edges because they're of the edges basically. And there you have it. Now anyone who listens to my podcast or follows my YouTube channel at all knows how I paint my Easterling miniatures. So I can tick that box now. So who is this person I say volunteered to voice act in my Age of the Ring submod and later my direct mods for the plain old fashioned Battle for Middle Earth games just the way they're packaged? Well, the answer you seek is in a name, in a Discord username. And his user handle is MohArtProductions. And then, yeah, he sent me a 90-second clip of his voice acting. And it's basically titled Mohammed Yaha voice demo. Yeah, that's the voice demo title. And so there's that. So he's got that going on. I've got, yeah, and I told him, you know, a broad range of voices there, and I will write you scripts. I will write you a script for Amdur, Lord of Blades. I didn't tell him yet. He'll know from this podcast, but you don't have to request me to write him the scripts for the character of Fozzie Foozly, Sammy, my dog that asked me to do stuff by meowing like a cat. He's already gonna know from hearing this podcast episode that I actually have two roles that I want to write scripts for him for instead of one. All right, I guess I should really get on that, like as rendering this podcast episode because YouTube won't let me won't let anyone publish podcasts without at least a picture to go with it, and yeah, at a bare minimum, a podcast needs a picture like a JPEG or a PNG to go with it. And yeah, his 90-second voice acting clip, it's really good stuff. And I guess you can, I don't know. I don't know if he I don't know if he's wants to like showcase it to all of my audience, but Moar, if you're listening to this, you be the decider of whether or not people get to ask to hear the same 90 seconds of good voice acting that I got to hear, okay? Cool. All right, so Mr. Moar Productions volunteered to voice act as Amdur, and he most likely learned from this podcast episode that I want him to voice Bosley Foozly too, which is a mage character I dreamt up for my Battle for Middle Earth and Age of the Ring Easterling faction. Oh yeah, that's what's next. Who I learned to do the accent and my voice acting from, and what this person told me, this YouTube creator. Well, I don't know his real name, like I do with my volunteer voice actor. I do know, however, that if I just look up that, let's see, Mark. Anyway, it's just this video that says how to have an Arabic accent, and it's the thumbnail says Arabic accent 101. If you watch that video, you'll know who I learned it from and basically how I do it and how he does it, and as a result how I do it. Oh, hold on. I gotta go answer a comment as I'm recording this episode. Yeah, yeah. This guy thought some guy that thought that factions were limited to 11. That's only for AI. Yeah, that's kind of a trick when you're a YouTube creator is you have to like answer feedback and because so that your audience know that they're not just a number or a statistic to you. But yeah, if you look up how to have an Arabic accent, and you see that video with Arabic accent 101, that one's made by the guy that has a video that taught me how to do that accent that I use for all of my Easterling voice acting, Easterling unit and hero voice acting. Oh yeah, that doesn't answer the question of why though. Let's get into that. Why did I choose Arabic accent for my Easterling voices? Well, it all began with the language along the edges of the shawl or headscarf of the Easterlings in the movies, looking not exactly but somewhat similar to like Arabic writing. The writing reminded me a lot of Arabic, and I would later read in Peoples of Middle Earth, page 296, that the Easterling language, excuse me, contains numerous similarities to Dwarvish and not Elvish. That would prompt me to go read about Dwarvish, and I found out that Dwarvish is heavily inspired by Semitic languages and includes and basically carries its spelling and grammar methods, or phonology and morphology, as it's called in linguistics and literature, over from Arabic. Although Dwarvish itself is mostly based on Hebrew, but that's not the topic right now. The topic right now is why I chose an Arabic accent for my Easterling voices. And so far, it's because of what the language looked like in the movies, reminded me of the writing of it in the movies, and because of the indirect connection to Arabic that I found out about Eastron or Runish or whatever you want to refer to Eastern language as in one of Tolkien's books, his lesser known books, Peoples of Middle Earth. And plus the Easterlings clothing looks very, very similar to like medieval Arab Saracen knight clothing, but dyed like red for some, purple for others, and black for others, if you know what I mean. And also because I don't want to draw too heavily from one specific culture. So, like, the language similarities and the accent is about all I'm pulling from Arabic. And then, obviously, pulling from medieval China for the architecture and the missile infantry weapons, or missile infantry weapon, I should say, and pulling a lot from samurai history from for some of the attribute modifiers, namely the ones to do with fear resistance and terror resistance, and also pulling from the Central Asian steppe nomads of the early Middle Ages for like the differentiation between chariot and wain, and for the highly extensive placement deployment of archers on horseback instead of on foot. So like a sort of like a hodgepodge, kind of like how what a workshop did with not just the Easterlings but all the human cultures, and designing each different human culture for that majestic trilogy of films. Yeah, I know that was a lot, but all of it put together is why I chose Arabic for the accent of my Easterling voices. All right, I guess it's almost time for me to stop recording, so I guess I should get into the off-topic thing. Why did I not like the movie The Flash that came out this year, just last month? Well, it's because the vast majority of things I noticed in it were very like unsettling for me, is the word I seek. Like like for one, that scene, there's a scene where the Flash has to save a bunch of newborns from a collapsing hospital, and the newborn babies look like fake looking cartoon plastic video game babies, and that was only the beginning of things wrong with that scene. There was also a bunch of items that real that brazenly do not show up in a newborn baby's monitoring room of a hospital in real life. Like a microwave for one, and a flame projector for another. Like, what? This scene does not understand hospitals. Excuse me. And another thing I hated about that made me really not like The Flash, made me feel really disappointed in it, was wait for it, the fact that three of the five Justice League heroes, all five of them are in the movie, but three of them serve no purpose. One of them barely shows up, and even then shows up in like 12 different personas for like 2 seconds each. And that would be Superman that shows up that confusingly. Served no purpose. Wonder Woman served borderline no purpose. She did save Batman and that thug with the suitcase from falling into the water together, but other than like after that, she served no purpose. And finally, Aquaman served no purpose other than to give us like a slapstick humored scene that I'll just spoil it because I refuse to recommend this movie to anyone. It's basically an after credit scene of him like drunk out of his mind and Flash being like his designated driver. It's like, yeah, what? Finally, another thing I want to spoil out of refusal to let anyone who follows my channel see this movie, or that came out wrong, out of refusal to recommend this movie to anyone, there's the fact that at the very end, George Clooney gets a cameo that to me felt like a waste of his time, more so than anyone else's, including mine. And yeah, I've said a very similar thing to all of this on the movies and shows channel on the Age of the Ring server, which you can go you can go directly reply to that if you wanna join it first and then direct reply to my comments on the Flash movie. I don't know. You make up your mind whether or not to do that. Holy smokes, I covered everything. Covered everything I want to cover in this episode. Thank you all for watching. Please hit the like button, add this to your favorites, subscribe, turn on hit the all alerts button, and leave a comment that preferably one that actually touches on stuff that was actually covered in this podcast episode. And that's all I got for you. All right. You all enjoy the rest of your day. I am going to go do other stuff that takes place off this laptop. And at some point tonight, Mo Art, talking to you now, I promise I will get you, I promise I will write you at least the script for Amdur as one of the last things I do before I hit the hay for the night. All right, cool. Bye.